Hello, my name is Miguelito Jerome, and welcome to Local Changemakers Podcast, where we spotlight individuals making a significant impact in our community. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Nancy Flinchbaugh, a distinguished author, Christian contemplative, and leader based here in Springfield, Ohio. Hello, how you doing?
It's good to see you this morning.
Good.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's an honor actually to have you. You are the very first guest of our podcast today. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's amazing. I feel honored. So thank you.
For sure. So today, it's a good day. I also think it's snowing today too, if I'm not mistaken. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Nancy?
Yes, well, I'm an author and I write for change. I see my life mission as serving God and people and working for peace, justice, and the earth. I've been retired for several years. I used to work at the city of Springfield, where I was a fair housing and mediation coordinator, and I also coordinated intercultural programming. I helped start Culture Fest, and I had the Global Education and Peace Network, and I also coordinated the mediation service and the Fair Housing Board. So I did a variety of things, but now in retirement, I'm really trying to continue to focus on the issues that are important to me and my writing, and also be involved in the community when I can. So I'm trying to raise awareness on issues of justice in the earth and calling people to work for a better future for all of us.
That's amazing. That's amazing, and so to find that passion while you're retired, it's quite a blessing too, right?
Yeah.
And you also said that you are you write. Do you write a lot? I mean, I could see a lot of books from your Facebook and LinkedIn page, but do you write a lot? You passionate about that?
Yeah, I didn't really start doing that until like the second half of my life after I moved to Springfield, I went on a retreat with some of my friends and they said, Nancy, you're a writer. And it was kind of a surprise to me, but I thought, well, maybe they've appreciated some of the things I've written, so I'll try it out. And I started this book called The Artist's Way, which encourages you to have a morning discipline of journaling. And I pray and meditate every morning. And I just kind of listened to God. And one day I decided I was going to try to write a novel with God. That became my first book, Revelation in the Cave. And then I just kept going from there. I got a writing coach, and she helps give me the discipline because I have to give her pages every week. But it's given me a platform to write about these things that I'm really concerned about.
So you said that you pray a lot. What exactly this prayer plays into your, uh, the importance of these prayers in your life? Would you say?
Well, I guess as a Christian, my goal is to serve God and people. I decided that when I was like in middle school, that I would devote my life to God. And so at this point in my life, I'm just trying to listen to God. What do you want me to do?
Hmm.
There's such big problems that are facing us as a community and as a nation and as a world. And sometimes it seems like we're so small. What can Nancy do? I know a few years ago when I started worrying about climate change, I thought there's nothing I can do. And so I pray about that. I listen, and I found out, there's a lot that I can do. I haven't solved the problem yet. My son actually lives in Los Angeles, and I'm really concerned about Los Angeles this morning.
Yeah.
And but anyway, that's kind of my faith motivates me. I also have to say, I was born in 1955. I think I was born in a place of privilege in the history of our planet.
Hmm.
Not that I was a wealthy person, but I, had all my needs met. If I think about back into history and what people had to do just to survive,
Hmm.
everything was pretty easy for me. My dad was a minister. My mom stayed home. I got to go to college. I could kind of pursue my dreams. And I feel because of that, because I've had so many blessings in my life, it's my responsibility to give back.
Give
And
back.
so I started, in college, thinking that peacemaking was part of my job
Mm-hmm.
and justice making. I went to Detroit for my junior year of college. And some people go to Europe. I went to Detroit. At that time, they called it Murder City. My mom said, "Why can't you just go to Europe, Nancy?" But
Yeah.
that was my life too. And I started to realize some of the, especially racial injustice in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was born on the 4th of July. And I
Wow.
needed to become a little
You've
more
been through that.
critical. And I said, no more red, white, and blue on my birthday, Mom. It's like, so anyway, that's kind of how I got started. I just feel like it's my responsibility to listen to God and to do the best I can because God has given us this beautiful creation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been amazing technological development and progress in the human race, but now we're kind of on a collision course to destroy ourselves. And we also are not treating each other with love, what Jesus taught us to do. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm working on. And it's big. I call my business spiritual seedlings.
Mm-hmm.
The sunflowers.
That.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've got sunflowers on my pen. I've got them all around me on my website, on my ears. But I'm trying to plant seeds because the sunflower is a centered seed, right? And
Uh,
so I'm trying to plant seeds of hope and love and peace and justice in my writing. And so that kind of change is really slow. But,
uh-huh.
at our church, we had a creation justice session last spring, and we gave out sunflower seeds. And people kept coming to me and telling me how big their sunflowers were.
Yeah.
So I don't want to negate what I'm
You
doing,
even
but
have a sunflower dress too.
sometimes it's hard to see the fruits of my labor.
That's good. That's good. I mean, it's one of the my favorite flowers too, the sunflower. So we're gonna actually talk about this. Your book. So and your writing, it's described as a spiritual practice. And I could see some of them on LinkedIn, like Revelation of the Labyrinth, the Revelation in the Cave, the Letters from the Earth. So, what inspired you to write these books?
Well, I believe God's a very creative God. God created the universe, right? So I read once a book that anybody who's close to God loves to create.
Hmm.
So I would just say, I have been very creative and I think that God inspires me. Yeah. So my first book, I was trying to write about peace because I also am a pacifist. I believe that Jesus taught us was pretty clear: don't kill, don't even strike your brother.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes the Bible is misinterpreted that way. I used to be a Mennonite, one of the pacifist denominations, and so I was writing Revelation in the Cave. It got complicated, but basically I started this book club, the Magnificent and Marvelous Mams, the Mams, and then they read a book about the Roman Empire, cast new light on the life of Jesus and the early Christians.
Hmm.
And so I was trying to say that the book of Revelation is really not about bringing on Armageddon, but it's about calling Christians to be faithful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that became an archaeological dig in Turkey where they dug up scrolls from the first century.
I was gonna ask.
Crazy, but it was fun writing that one. And then from there, the MAMS, the Magnificent and Marvelous Book Club, they went on to read about the earth. And so
Hmm.
that was where Revelation at the Labyrinth came. And another thing I'm concerned about is the drug problem, which has been huge in our community. And I wanted to say that, people have a right to try to change their lives.
Hmm.
So it's about the MAMS started a group home for women in recovery and reentry. And the main character gets out of prison and she's healing and working in the labyrinth. And then one of the mams gets breast cancer, which is another big problem. So it's really about coming together. And there's some issues about climate change in there. A solution
Yeah.
for the fossil fuel industry, if they want to listen, they could diversify.
Actually, I was going to ask. I could see the environmental subject as a recurring theme in your work. So, notably in your memoir, "Letters from the Earth." So, were you convey messages from the earth? Or, what prompted you to address, the
Yeah,
environment?
that's a little quirky. You might think I'm a little crazy, but Joanna Macy, who's a Buddhist, she wrote a book called Act of Hope: How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy.
Mm,
And she was talking specifically about what do we do when we realize the earth is heating up. And she was talking about different spiritual practices. And one of her suggestions was to write a letter to yourself from the earth. And so
wow.
I was reading that book, yeah, and I was out visiting my son in Seattle, and I said, let's try it. Let's try to write a letter to ourselves from the earth. And so we
Mhm,
all went away with a piece of paper. 15 minutes we came back. My son said I couldn't do it. And his
mhm,
girlfriend said, oh, this is too depressing. I wrote 2 lines and I quit. My husband wrote kind of a stern letter. And then I wrote this letter, which I felt like I received. I didn't quite write it. It said, I didn't evolve into existence for 4.7 billion years to have you sit around like a lump on a log. This
mm,
is a huge experiment and a wonderful dance. Take
yeah,
joy. And then she also said, I wanted you to start a blog. So, I was kind of scratching my head, but it was like a wonderful message, which
great.
to come beyond me. And so what I decided to do on my 60th birthday in my backyard, my sons were back there looking at, oh no, what's mom doing now? I read my letter and I said, I'm going to continue to receive letters from the earth. So
Mm,
in the morning when I journal and meditate, sometimes I will receive a letter from God or
yeah.
God, as she calls herself. And those letters, so my book is about a year in my life where I received 24 letters. It was a year that I was feeling my friend was dying of cancer. My brother died. The daffodils came up on Christmas morning. I was concerned about the climate. And so the earth was encouraging me. So they're really kind of messages of encouragement. How do
Mhm,
you live in these times?
yeah.
And it helped me a lot. At the end, I wrote a letter to the reader about what I'd learned. So that's what the letters from the earth is.
I mean, it's pretty much the inspiration from the earth. It's the message, it's the connection, that you receive, and I'm glad you are even open to share, these to the world. So, you've been involved too with the Citizens Climate Lobby,
Yeah.
aiming to build bipartisan political addressing climate change, as a whole. So, how do you see the role of local communities, like Springfield, and contributing to the environmental solutions here in town?
I think that at this point we do need to work locally. And at times our city government has been trying to work on this. I'm not quite sure what the status of that is right now, but I know some of my friends have been talking to them about possibilities.
Mm,
I have a friend in Citizens Climate Lobby, and he started a group called Clark County Energy Producers
mm,
because he and his wife have solar panels on their house. They have an electric car. They're
mhm,
actually producing more energy than they need, and
mm,
they're encouraging others to do that also. It's such an important issue. A lot Yellow Springs is like going off of fossil fuels completely. So the things that we can do on a local level, but I'm also involved in Citizens Climate Lobby because unless as a country we work together on this, we're not going to take enough significant action. So it
mm.
has to be a bipartisan approach across the aisle. And I've been working with that group for 10 years and we've tried to get other local people involved. So I don't know if that
That's
answers your question.
that's amazing. That's amazing that, community wise, and the impact of all that too, quite amazing. So, let's go back to your latest novel, the Maria of the Wing. Is that
Mariah, amen.
Maria
Yes.
of the Wing? So, this is you wrote this during the pandemic. That's
Yeah. So
give us a glimpse into this story and what readers could actually anticipate from that novel.
okay, well, this book it's a book about a young woman who's kind of in love with the earth,
Mm,
and you see the seasons there: the snow, the spring, the summer,
wow.
fall. She's walking through the seasons. I went in to write about the beauty of the earth because I just think God's creation is so amazing. She also has Native American roots, and I kind of wanted to lift up some of the wisdom of the Native Americans who were here first.
Mm-hmm.
It's a love story. They call it Christian romance on Amazon. They call it environmental. But she falls in love with a wind scientist during the pandemic. And so
Yeah.
it's their story, but it's also, I wanted to look at what the fossil fuel industry is doing to wind scientists. And I don't know if you're aware that they actually target, send death threats, and try to challenge everything they're saying on social media. And so the wind scientist Max is being dogged by this guy from the fossil fuel industry who gets COVID. And he has kind of an awakening experience. It's a little bit Scrooge-like. I won't tell you about it, but yeah.
I mean,
he changes his mind about what he's doing.
it's such an important topics and sensitive actually topics too. But it's so important for our future, for the generation, for the earth, you know. So would you say that right now we having the best earth situation, like you feel like the earth is it's healthy, if I can say it like that, or healthier than before?
Well, there's so much being done, to try to take care of the earth around the world. I think what happened was the technological industrialization of our planet happened so quickly. So within 150 years, we went from the time everybody's working on the family farm or just barely kind of getting by in a more primitive way to wonderful technology. But I think, especially here, I see in the United States, the people came in from Europe and they just used whatever they found. Basically, they were taking other people's lands. They kidnapped people from Africa to do a lot of the work, but they also just had so much plenty. They never got into thinking, oh, we've got to preserve this. The Native Americans would not do anything unless they were going to protect future generations, 7 generations, whenever they took action. We didn't do that in our development. And now, there has been a lot of work. I think we've realized we have to take environment seriously because the earth is not going to continue to serve us if we don't honor it. But right now, there's a lot of people that want to just encourage the businesses to do whatever they want and just ignore all the environmental issues, which is a big problem. We can reverse some things. The warming of the planet is something that is going to be really difficult. It's, you see Los Angeles burning.
Yeah, we have Georgia too, snowing.
Yeah,
in Georgia, it was snowing so bad, people died from that. It's something rare, pretty much, but it's happening, and like you said, Los Angeles right now, and it's all over the world.
Right, and I think the United States has not been immune from it. If you read, if you study, it's happening. Maybe because it's not happening to you. I think Asheville, North Carolina, is a good example. We have good friends, and my cousin lives down there, and I think they thought they were immune from climate change. What happened? Almost all of a sudden, one community was completely destroyed, just like what's happening in Los Angeles. That is a result of the climate change, and yeah.
Would you say this unfortunate situation happening right now would push our leaders, political or community leaders, to think more and address this more, or consider even the global warming as a thing?
I would hope so. I would hope that they do. I do think that there's been a lot of disinformation from the fossil fuel industry and a lot of focus on development, and they think it's not possible to develop in the right way. But actually, we can make more money diversifying from fossil fuels into solar and wind. There are more jobs in that. I think it comes down to the individual. I also have a book called Awakening. a contemplative primer on learning to sit.
Mm,
And when I was younger, somebody told me, a spiritual director, Nancy, I think maybe what you could do is incorporate silence into your life. Which I was always an extrovert. I was raising two little boys at the time, and I laughed. But later in my life, I did find that silence is so important.
mhm,
And I think that we need to slow down. We all need to slow down. Remember when the pandemic started,
mhm.
how people were kind of amazed something different was happening. We've gotten so far away from our roots to the earth. I think that meditating also put me in touch with nature more. And
Mhm.
I started, once you start to listen to nature and to realize how we're a part of nature, that changes you also. And so I think, personal prayer, slowing down is really important, and connecting with other people. And
That's
I don't know. I right now it doesn't seem like our government is headed in the right direction, but I know there's been a lot of work with like Citizens Climate Lobby. We passed major climate legislation. It
mhm.
wasn't exactly what we wanted, but I now hear they want to unravel all that, which
Yeah,
we can't afford to do at this point
yeah.
in the history of our planet.
Well, that's pretty much the first part of our podcast, Nancy. Stay with us, and we will continue with more advice and personal reflections on the second part. So let's take the break. All right, so here we are. We're back again with our author, Nancy, talking today about different um, experience that you had. So I want to move forward with the personal reflection, some advice. So balancing your roles as a community leader, author, spiritual guide, all that requires a lot of skills and dedication for sure. So how do you maintain this balance, and what advice you would give me or someone out there looking to integrate their passions into their professional lives pretty much?
Well, I think like for your personal energy, it's important to restore yourself. When I was working at the city, I spent a lot of time with landlords and tenants, and there was always stress. We did mediation between landlords and tenants, and so I learned I had to take care of myself. So I think all of us need to take care of ourselves, and so I exercise regularly. I participate in community. I go to church. My spiritual life, I'm involved in some different spiritual groups that help me. As I told you, I meditate every morning,
Mhm.
and I like to spend time in nature. I like to take a lot of photographs. I find that helps me focus on the beauty of nature. I like to go on long walks. So those are some of the things I do. But I think if I'm actually mentoring a little girl at Lincoln Elementary right now with my church. We're involved in the Kids Hope program.
Mhm.
And it's just about spending an hour a day with one on one child. And so it's a new year. And so I talked to her about goal setting. She didn't even know what I was talking about. And I forget what first graders know. We dipped Buckeyes. We made Buckeyes. She didn't know what a Buckeye was. She didn't know who the Ohio State Buckeyes were. She
Wow.
never heard of a Buckeye, but we made Buckeyes together for Christmas. But anyway, she had never heard of a goal. And I told her, I think goals can be really important.
Mhm.
Think about what you want to do in your life and then focus on that. And I told her, I've written 6 books. I never would have done that if I hadn't had a goal and
Yeah.
if I didn't have the discipline.
Yeah.
And I tell the people that want to be writers, you need to work on it every day. I get up every day and I work on it a little bit. Right now, I'm editing my book that's at the publisher. I wrote a book called Revelation in the Roots Emerald Isle, and I'm trying to lift how we're all interconnected in our roots. A lot
Mm.
of people in America have European roots, as well as African roots, and so my MAMs took their group home members to explore the lands of their DNA. In the first book, they went to Ireland. So this is kind of a fun book. It's about touring Ireland, which I love. I have some Irish roots, but it's also about trying to come together across our differences. And so my current book is Revelation on the Sea Island, which is about the Gullah people and the slaves, and so right now my discipline is I'm also writing a book about West Africa. So I did a trilogy, Ireland, the Gullah roots, and West Africa. But I have to take a break from writing West Africa because my publisher is ready to publish my Gullah book, which is Revelation on the Sea Island. And it's hard right now. It's like, like I said, I exercise, I'm involved in community. I'm trying to edit this book. I've got to painstakingly go over it. My editor has made changes. I've got to go back and, make those changes or argue with her about things. We've got to come up with a cover. But, I'm just doing it. Now I'm doing I just do this every morning for a little bit. I'm expanding to my whole day until I can get this done. But I think that's what I would tell people. Work on it every day. Listen for what is yours to do. And I always like that quote from Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. Indeed, they're the only ones who ever have. And so when you think you're small, don't get too frustrated. Don't be afraid to dream. Don't be afraid to have a vision. And you've got to get other people working with you. By yourself, it's really hard. You've got to work together with other people.
Yeah, that's right. That's nice, actually, and inspiring too. So, how long it will take you to, or usually take you to write a book and publish it? How's that process? And how do you?
It's a long process. I say my first book took 5 years. It came out in 2012, and I started working on my second one. It came out in 2017. And then I was doing that little Letters from the Earth thing, and I just talked to my writing coach about it. And she said, yeah, I think you should write a book about it. So that was a little shorter. That came out in 2018, and that was probably just a couple of years. And then I was taking a class on leading contemplative small groups and retreats. And a friend asked me to lead a retreat at her church. And I started to write about that. And I thought, hey, this could become a book that could become a resource for people who wanted to engage in contemplative practice. So that book actually came out during the pandemic in 2020? Yeah, so those books were a little shorter. And then my third book, The Revelation of the Roots, 2023. So we went from 2017 to 2023 working on those novels. So see, that was 6 years. And then Mariah came out the next year, 2024. So, it's between 2 and 5 years, I think.
Wow, that's impressive. That's impressive. I mean, even the commitment to work for that, length of period, it's commitment. It's interesting. That's how for me, I see discipline in your work.
Yeah. I mean, I can't quite believe that I have 6 books, the 7th one about to be published and an 8th one on the way. It seems a little impossible that I've done that, but I would have to say my writing coach and my prayer practice are kind of the foundations, that discipline, because I meet with her like 3 or 4 times a month, and I give her 20 pages before we meet, and then she gives me suggestions and edits. And without her, Kathy Giorgio, with All Writers Workshop, I would not be where I am today. But like I said, told you earlier, that I believe our God is a creative God, and people that are close to God long to create. And so really this is Nancy being creative. And it's kind of a fun thing. I try to write, my characters are trying to live the things that I wish we could do as a people.
I mean, hey, you using your gift and inspiring your community with your gift too, So it's for me, I feel like you're using it the right way, and putting your thoughts out there, and all of the inspiration coming from God, you're putting it out there. So I feel like it's really interesting and inspiring too for other leaders and people listening out there. I wanted to go. I wanted to go into your journey, pretty much. Reflecting in on your journey and all these different hats that you wear and you wore. So, what has been the most rewarding, aspect of your life? I would say of your work. Also, um, what future aspiration do you hold for yourself at the in the Springfield community? How do you see Springfield? Pretty much. I mean, that's the question.
Okay, can you just say
The
that
most,
one more time? What
you
do you
know,
want me
what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of your work? So the most rewarding, what would you say is the most impressive thing that you feel like you're accomplishing with your work?
Yeah, like when I was still working at the city, I really like to bring people together. And there were a lot of special moments, through my career. Culture Fest, we used to have it on the City Hall Plaza, and we would have three different stages going on at the same time. The Global Education and Peace Network. Each month, we would have a program to educate about different cultures,
Mm,
and we would create an annual calendar, which I forget, we made 4,000 copies of that. And we would not only have the program going on, but we'd have this calendar in the classrooms in the county, all the schools, so that the teachers could educate their children about different cultures. That was really gratifying. We also, with my mediation program, we had the Springfield Peace Center, and they would have an annual peace camp. And it started a program of peer mediators in
mhm,
this school and high school students. And they helped us volunteers at the peace camp, but we also taught them conflict resolution skills. And that was just a very gratifying thing
yeah.
to work with them and to see them developing. And I guess now, as I'm retired, I'm not quite as active, but I still enjoy being involved in my church. And I'm the head of our service and outreach committee, and there's things that we can do. Like we started the Kids Hope program at our
Mm,
church a few years ago, and now there's a group of us that go into Lincoln every week. When we were concerned that the Haitian food truck got damaged, we
mm,
started to organize some fundraising, and we
yeah.
were able to get enough money together from different people that donated to get that back on. So there's just little things like that we can do. We had our service and outreach group donated to the Haitian Community Alliance that just started, they just put on that amazing event last Saturday, calling the people together for unity.
Mm,
So all those things are gratifying that on the one hand, Nancy, I'm just one person and I can't do very much, but I feel like that God uses me. And like I think I told you, when I first started looking at the environmental problems, I thought there's nothing I can do. But
mm,
I was at the time working on my contemplative leadership. And so if you read my book, Awakening, there's a chapter on listening to the earth. And it's a spiritual practice that the monks developed to read the Bible. It's called Lectio Divina, but you can also listen to God's creation, and we started a small group. There's a process in here to start a small group on a social issue that's important to you. And we actually started the group while I was writing the book. And we still have a group at our church, a creation justice group, which I coordinate, that continues to meet. So yeah, I think there's a lot that we can do when God plants the seed and we water it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm still growing. I'm sometimes a little too busy in retirement. And then sometimes I think, what are you doing, Nancy? Are you doing enough? Because I haven't solved all the problems I'm concerned about. you know.
No, the John Wooden actually said it once. I think it's little things make big things happen. So I feel like it's uh it's really important to actually um, feel rewarded for all this work that you're doing. And the way I see this, with all these books and experiences and mentoring people here in the community, involved in the community, even when you're retired, it's such a an inspiring thing to do. So how would I find or buy your books if I'm looking to purchase one of your books or read about them? Where are they available?
All my books are on Amazon. I think there are some other places too. I think one time I looked recently, they're all on Barnes and Noble online. You can
Mhm.
buy them at the Champion City Guide and Supply downtown, or you
Okay.
can buy them from me. I give you special discounts.
Okay.
And
Okay.
they also are available as Audible books on Amazon and Kindle books on Amazon. I
Mm.
also I like to sell books, but I also want to mention they're all in the Clark County Public Library for people that maybe can't afford. You can check them out
Okay.
there. Please do buy them for me. But I also want you to look for my next book,
Mm.
Revelation on the Sea Island, because what I'm trying to do in that book is lift up the culture of the West Africans that were
Mm.
kidnapped and brought here against their will, because they really continued to share their culture,
Mhm.
and it's made it a stream of American culture. They use their own language. Sometimes I think that while we know there's a lot of racism and African Americans are degraded in our society, but
Mhm.
the way they talked, a lot of that was some of their African language that they were still incorporating, which is still alive today. But if you think about music, if you
Mhm.
think about food, if you think about spirituality, those Africans brought so many gifts to our culture. And so that's when my mams, they go down to Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, they're kind of exploring the plantations,
Mhm.
touring, visiting, learning about the history of slavery, but
Uh,
they're also learning about those contributions. And so that's what I want my next book will do, is to help realize the richness of the African American culture and the contributions they've made to our lives here in the United States,
yes.
which
Yeah.
is, I realize that's also true in Haiti. A
Every-
lot of Africans came to Haiti as slaves, and they
Mhm.
shared their pumpkin soup Saturday, and it was so delicious. And they said they, as slaves, they had to make that for the masters, and they weren't allowed to eat it. So now, eating it and making it is an act of liberation and defiance, and saying we are important too. So I want to make that soup. I need the recipe.
Actually, the recipe is available in the Alliance magazine. I hope
Yeah.
kids will be
Is
able
it
to.
in the one with John Legend on the cover, or the first
That's
one?
the one, the John
I've
Legend.
got that on my coffee table. I haven't read it yet. But
Yeah, it's on the yeah. We have the whole recipe. It's not easy, but we had to put it there because we know that people would be interested in the recipe and everything.
awesome. Thank you for telling me that. Yeah.
Sure. I only have two more questions for you, Nancy. So the next one is pretty much related to what you just said about the African American and people. How would you say it's the best way to for an immigrant or for whoever coming to the states to integrate, to be connected and be able to grow from there like a seed, like they used to say. So what advice would you give to a new a comer or a new immigrant coming to the states?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I have a lot of respect for somebody who moves here from another culture, because I think it's very challenging. The language issue is so big. So I think, trying to learn language, but I also understand it takes 7 years to become fluent in a language. I've tried to use Spanish. I started when I was 26, and I can communicate in Spanish. I can't understand it very well. So I just know that's really hard, but I think you've got to get involved with groups, and churches. I've really enjoyed getting to know a few Haitians that come to our church.
Yeah.
I I used to live in San Antonio, in San Antonio, the Mexican American population is the majority. So, for me as a European American, I really enjoy the diversity of cultures, which I always have. But I think, you just have to get involved, and it's hard work. It's very hard work.
Yeah, get involved. Get involved. It's pretty important. Involve in the community. Involve, just like you doing. And that's why we're doing this podcast, to make sure that people actually listen and hear how things are being done, and what change makers, community leaders, and individual, individually, the type of works they're doing, and inspire from that.
Yeah, so you were asking me, is there one more thing I wanted to say? And I was just thinking, how can immigrants get involved in our community? And I would
Mm,
encourage them to volunteer.
mm,
I have a good friend who came from Pakistan, and she got her son and I think daughter involved in volunteering, but she personally volunteered so much before she became a legalized citizen.
mm,
And there was, at the time, Global Education and Peace Network read a book called Acts of Faith by Ibu Patel, and started a group called the Interfaith Youth Service Corps. So it's not just adults that can volunteer, but also young people. And
mm,
what he was interested in, why he, as a Muslim who immigrated here, became kind of on a good track, where he
mm,
watched some people growing up in the inner city where he grew up going on a bad track. And he
mm,
thought the difference was that his father wanted him to be volunteering. So he was volunteering with different youth organizations. And he just saw how that made a positive impact in his life. And I have to think about my friend, Noreen, who came from Pakistan. Her son, Abdul, he joined with us when we were trying to start. Ibu Patel started a group called Interfaith Youth Service Corps, where he invited kids of different faiths to work together as volunteers. And so we
mm,
started one of those groups, high school, and we had, so Abdul
mhm,
came and he was involved in that. And it went a little ways, but anyway, Abdul is now an emergency room doctor
wow,
in Pennsylvania, and I think those experiences he had volunteering, even in medical school, he helped young people in the city start an urban garden.
mhm.
So those kind of things you just don't know, but I think it can help somebody trying to be a part of the community become a volunteer and to help make a difference, and especially the young people too. I know it's a challenge for them to move into a new community, and that way they can be doing something positive in their free time.
So my last question is pretty much a question, for not for you per se. It's for our next guest. So imagine something that you would want me to ask the next guest. What do you think I should ask the next guest coming to our podcast? Let's say a community leader. It's a leader. It's someone in town. What would you want me to ask them?
Well, I think you have great questions. You know, the ones you asked me are good ones to ask them also.
Okay.
And I think maybe, what is your vision of a community of, we talk about the beloved community. I don't know if a city leader, if everybody would say it that way, but I mean, it would be just to get them to talk a little bit about what they think the ideal society would be like, and then how they're working towards that. Yeah.
All right. So it's been definitely an enlightening conversation, Nancy. Thank you. What is a last thing you would like to share with us today in our podcast, or you think you had noted and you want to share that with our audience?
Well, a couple of things, just that if you read my books, you'll get to go on some adventures to other places. The first one, you go to Greece and Turkey.
Mhm.
The second one, you go into our community and learn about the Alcoholics Anonymous and some of the groups that are working to help people change. And the third one, you go to Ireland. The fourth one's also here, but the one that I'm writing is the Sea Islands, and then the one that I'm editing now, and then West Africa will be my next book. So you
Excellent.
get to travel, but I also encourage you to look at my YouTube
Yeah.
site where I've interviewed a lot of people. I
Mhm.
have some podcasts about talking about race because I think that's really important. I also have interviews with people that also practice various forms of contemplative spirituality. When I was marketing this book, I interviewed a lot of people. And more recently, I started a podcast and a blog on writing for change. So actually, we're doing the same thing. So I would encourage you to check that out, but also to talk to other writers who want to talk to me. I'd be glad to interview them and put that up on my YouTube channel. I've also got podcasts out there on that writing. I moved last summer, and I kind of gotten away from that, but I want to get back into that.
Sure. All these information and links will be down of this video in the description. We'll be able to share down your books, links, your podcasts, and your websites too. I believe it's spiritual seeding.
Yeah, I do have my name, nancyflinchbaugh.com, as I'm trying to focus on that. I do have spiritualseedlings.com, which eventually I want to phase out. But you can look at both of those right now. They're
That's great.
I'm trying to get all the information from Spiritual Seedlings on the Nancy Flinchbaugh. Not quite.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing with us, your experience and being available and sharing all these insights with us too. I feel like it was enlightening. I feel like the audience will learn a lot from that. And we appreciate your time. We appreciate your work, and keep doing the good work. I'm looking forward to take one of your book and read it. Probably have a next talk in the future to talk more about, the climate change or any justice topic as a whole. So I look forward to witnessing more the continuing work and positive work you're doing in the community, Nancy. Thank you for being here with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been great talking to you, and hopefully I'll get to know you a little more in the future too.
Sure, definitely. Wow. All right. So with that being said, thank you for tuning to Local Changemakers. Stay connected with us for more inspiring stories from individuals making a difference in our community. Until next time, take care and keep making change happen. Thank you.